Good afternoon, everyone. I think people are currently joining, so we'll give it a minute. I'll give some information about the session. This is our second Essence Miro event, the Amsterdam Miro Music Group. For the second event, we've had good responses after the first event, the last one, that we did months ago. And it's great to see that many of you have also joined our chapter. So if you want, you can also join in the Miro user group events page. We'll share the link afterwards as well. But I think many of you here have already done that. But it's very nice to see, and it helps us to also achieve our goal of fostering collaboration, to work with different people across sectors, across different companies. To see how we can develop everyone's skill by sharing knowledge and inspire each other in how to use Miro or also other tools to collaborate. Unfortunately, this event is still virtual, so we also have the idea of doing physical events, but of course, given the circumstances, that's currently not possible yet. But it does give us the opportunity to also make use of Miro ourselves in these events, so that's also something that we'll do in this session. And for the call, we're using Zoom at the moment. We've muted everyone by default, but if you have any questions or things you would like to discuss during the session, please raise your hand or enter a question or a comment in the chat window of Zoom. You can also use the board later when we'll go there. And so we'll use a Miro board, and Kim is sharing the link to the Miro board, so feel free to go there as well. We'll do some exercises there as well. And well, we have an exciting program today with Nathan Weyer, the COO of Philips Experience Design, waving his hand. But before I introduce him further, we'd like to do a small icebreaker exercise to get us all warmed up. This is led by my colleagues Piera and Kim, so I'll give them the stage, the virtual stage, to introduce us to the exercise and guide us through. It'll take about 5 minutes, and then I'll introduce Nathan for his presentation on the use of Miro within Philips.
So good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, welcome to our house, our Dutch home. So Kim is going to post the link of the Miro board in the chat. Please feel free to enter the board and make yourself at home. So we're curious to know all the community, and we're curious to understand who is joining this call. So feel free to enter, and we will invite you in the entrance to present yourself. So with a very easy icebreaker, we will ask you to draw your character. So you can copy and paste through these different shapes. So starting from the face, the hair, the eyes, the nose, you can just use this shape to build up your character. You can write your name here. You can describe yourself, what's your role, and if you want to connect with the community, you can always leave your email and be in touch with everyone. So to start this session, just have fun and draw yourself in the Miro board, and we will soon start with the presentation. To copy the elements, you can either do Command C, Command V, or just press Alt, select the element, and just drag it until the box that you're going to use to introduce yourself. If you want to get creative, there is also the pen tool on your left, and you can just draw something else and have fun drawing your character. Let's see, we have a guest artist here, Steve Watson, that he decided to draw himself. Very good.
Maybe while I'll introduce and I'll continue, maybe Piera, you can lower the volume a bit of the sound.
Yes, sure.
Feel free to continue a bit, and maybe also after the session. Really cool to see, to sort of get a feel for the faces of all of you. I can see many of you have also turned your camera on in Zoom, which is also very nice to see, so we can get a better feeling for who's attending our events. Many of you, as I can see, probably are already fairly experienced in Miro. I can see people using quite some skills there. And in this afternoon, or in this, yeah, it's afternoon, but there might also be some novice users. And today we want to have a look at the impact that Miro can have when you give this tool to a large group of creative people in a time where everyone is sort of forced to work remotely in a global organization that's always been focused on innovation. And we're very happy to introduce Nathan Weyer, Chief Operating Officer at Philips Experience Design, who has personally led the introduction of Miro at Philips. And I'm sure he has some great insights and stories that he can share on how Miro is being used at Philips, and that can inspire the rest of us in how to facilitate effective collaboration within large companies, but also probably smaller companies. So Nathan, very nice to have you here. The virtual stage is yours. One practical thing, if people have questions, feel free to put them in the chat window of the Zoom call, or you can also use the Miro board. We'll keep monitoring both of them, or you can also raise your hand, and then we'll address the questions after Nathan has done his presentation. All right, thank you. Nathan?
Thanks, Sandra. I'll take the virtual stage here, and with this reasonably small group today, I hope to make this a rather interactive conversation. So I see some faces out there, and if you guys want to keep your cameras on, that would be great. I can see everyone out there. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, Sandra, and thanks Pierre and Kim and Natalie and Miro for hosting these events. I think these are really great dialogues. I know a lot of our calendars are really busy sitting in chairs all day long attending these kind of events. So I hope it to be a worthwhile dialogue. But really, this is about collaboration. And Sander and the team at Essence, asked me to come in and have a discussion around collaboration. Philips, like many companies, is going through this journey, and Miro for us in many ways is at the center of it. I'll just take a few minutes talking about that today, and then let's get into a dialogue. But for us, of course, at least many of you in the Netherlands, I assume many of you are here in the Netherlands, but many maybe scattered around, know where Philips is coming from. Philips, in terms of kind of who we were, a 130-year-old company almost, mainly known for basically light bulbs, and a huge technology innovation company known for light bulbs and things like inventing the cassette tape. A legacy of significant R&D has really been on a journey of intense collaboration and evolution towards becoming a healthcare technology company. So essentially who we are is in many ways not who we are today. So who we are now is a much more focused healthcare technology company. And so a lot of our designers, engineers, and business leaders are working in environments like this today, where you have design focused on not only physical products like you see today, but a lot of screens. So digital platforms, technologies, and solutions focused on environments like this. This is our image-guided therapy business. And so what that means for our design team, which I'm a part of, is that we're all over the globe working in many different places. Sorry, the presentation is running away from me. 12 different design studios, a lot of different businesses, and still 95 years of history in our design team. But what relates to everybody on this call is what we're dealing with now is this phrase we're all confronted with every way and every day, trying to find what exactly this new normal actually means. And it's kind of like, what the heck is this actually? Because all of our teams that we're on are being asked by leaders that we work with, like, how are we supposed to possibly define this? And for us, At Philips, it's no different. The reality is our days are constantly consumed with meetings. Sometimes they're a little more interesting than others. Maybe this one is one of those. But for us, much like you at Philips, we try to have fun with it, creating more interesting moments in between the duller moments. But one of the key insights for us, and I hope some of you are experiencing this, is that the screen has essentially democratized the team for us. Whereas actually we were already very globally dispersed before, but we found that there was unevenness in the way we collaborated. There was, the meeting within the meeting kind of phenomenon happening, where you would have 2 or 3 people in a meeting room together, really working well together, but the rest of the team was distributed in a meeting or a call, and they weren't connected. So now what we have today is that, really the team feels more connected than ever, and there's really unprecedented levels of collaboration happening everywhere. Sometimes it's wonky, sometimes it doesn't work. And really, of course, when the pandemic hit, we said we really needed to find a different and better way of connecting. And that's for us where tools like Miro started to come in. And just to frame that properly, of course, you got to find a quote. So I went out and found a quote for this call. Why not have an Apple quote? Why not throw in a Steve Jobs quote? Steve Jobs said, it's not the tools that you have faith in. Tools are just tools. They either work or they don't. I kind of totally disagree. I think Steve Jobs never worked with Miro. I get the spirit of the quote in that it's not just about the tool, it's about the mindset and the people behind the collaboration. But I can tell you this, and I see 1 or 2 Philips people on this call, the exact moment we announced Miro within our team, this happened. It was sort of a windfall, because of course there needs to be at a baseline really functional tools to enable collaboration within a team. And we just didn't have it. There were really key pieces of collaboration missing within our team to enable those really purposeful and useful connections between not only our design team, but other elements in our organization. And so what Miro enabled us to do was to connect some of those elements in our organization across our whole company. And of course, Philips is a really large company. It's 80,000 people. And we were just lacking in the ability to facilitate some of those really interesting connections that we didn't have before. And so that was earlier this year. We're now moving into sort of, the early stages of building some interesting processes around using tools like Miro. And Miro is a major one. Whereas before, we might try to facilitate a session or a long-term project using things like PowerPoint even in a shared session. We're now able to use Miro to really do that. And I'll talk a little more about that in a second. We serve our users. Miro helped facilitate that. But it really has provided really increased collaboration to our core design team, cross product engineering, marketing, research, even business colleagues. And it's, I would say, provided really radical transparency, increased even diversity in the kind of teams we work with. And you can see the survey response. It's pretty obvious it's working, I would say. And just to stop the thank God for Miro moment, and I'll stop tooting the horn here. We also asked it what would happen if we took it away. I think users said they would be crying. But it clearly, to all joking aside, it's the fact that what were we doing before? So it's the before and after moment of what were we doing before to enable these kind of facilitations? And the reality was a lot of it was in person. So we were doing workshops, printing out, large, even 3-5 meter posters to facilitate either a design process, a strategy process, an innovation process, bringing people together in a physical room. And there were people outside of that room that were on a speakerphone that couldn't really follow. And so again, back to democratization, is what we feel like is happening. We're sort of in the middle of it. And yes, there's the downsides of the pandemic in terms of work from home fatigue, but in general, we think there's a positive thing happening. So yeah, more on that. So what have we learned through this, or what are we learning? Because clearly we're still learning, and there's a lot going on. Let me start with the sort of boring stuff first, because I have sort of a business and design background, strategy background. You need to bring along key stakeholders. It's easy, and I know there's a Miro person on the phone, because the Miro model is freemium in essential. I mean, it organically starts in an organization. You can use it for free and start building boards, but eventually you have to pay for it. Eventually you need to get, even in a smaller organization, you have to get your IT or business people on board with using it. So it's really important, and that's what we did to frame up the long-term opportunity of using it. How is it going to fit in with other tools that you use in your organization? It's really important to frame that up, to have those kind of stakeholders on board. That's what we did. The jury is still long-term out, but I think it is good to have a plan of how it fits into IT budgets, because of course costs are constrained in organizations, and especially now. So that's a really important point. Also, I think, and this goes without saying, I know everyone on this call is doing it. It's really nice. It's a nice opportunity to create new rituals, especially with the work from home scenario. We recently did an opening of a reopening of our Amsterdam office, because we had recently redesigned the physical space, and that gave us a really nice opportunity to kind of merge the physical with the digital, the virtual with the at home, filming moments and sharing those with people at home, but also sending care packages of things we've been doing in other global locations, and where we have sort of work from home allowances in some global locations, using those to tie in with virtual infrastructure. And so it really helps. Also, what we've seen with Miro specifically as a tool is trying to achieve this sort of asynchronous Zen, which is the first reaction that we've seen, especially from people that maybe don't have a design background, is just to see Miro as a workshop tool, as a moment in time tool that you use for one event. As teams get more used to it, we start to see more benefit of Miro as a continuous participation tool. So not just that one-time event, but to set it up as a place where teams go, as a project space. And of course, the natural thing for a design team is a design sprint, is a Kanban board, but even for strategy teams to go for long-term collaborations with customers, even organization planning. So as you're thinking about transforming an organization or a team, you keep all of the confidential information of the team, and you go there over time to plan that transformation. Also long-term goal setting, and really using it as that long-term tool. Back to the business case of how to bring in a tool like Miro, it also helps with that, because you can bring on the very organizational people that may be supporting bringing in Miro. You bring in them to use the project planning for that change. So that really helped in our case. And very much related to that for our design and research organizations, where we started to see value was embedding Miro in core company processes. So back to the workshop point, previously there was pitfalls we saw when we were just seen as the kind of design thinking workshop team. Where we saw in leveraging Miro was the ability to say, leveraging this tool as a way to embed our team in core company processes. And what that means is, if a new product is being launched, our team is coming in, of course, with Miro to run that whole process from end to end. So shared templates, of course, in Miro, deliverables, and content essentially that makes our team, of course, that's the obvious choice, to run that whole process using Miro as the key part of the key tool for that process. That may be more on the big company side, but maybe I think in smaller companies you could even see that. So an example, setting strategic context for a new product launch. Here you can see this is a blank template, but looking at everything from people, technology, society, business constraints, to start setting up the framing context for a new product launch context. this is a template. Our team helps drive the creation of this and the workshop around that, but ultimately, again, the asynchronous contribution, continuous contribution to the creation of this particular product or service over time. And then we become very embedded in the creation of this, not just one-time event, but over time. So this was huge for us. Another learning was, in terms of landing Miro, was the communication. I think it's fairly easy just to depend on the organic nature of something exciting like Miro, but we went pretty out of our way to communicate and really talk a lot about it. How many new boards were being added, how many new users were coming on. And then we've done a fair amount of training. Even though it's very easy, the onboarding path is very easy. It tends to catch on and grow wildly amongst the user base. We did a lot of messaging and we're continuing to do that. So simple notes like this that we would send out in our Teams is the tool we use. We would track, how many boards, share feedbacks, do surveys, track how many collaborators were joining in, and we would get a lot of good feedback from this. We'd stay very close to feedback, solve issues, and make sure that people were really learning how to use it. And yeah, this is, I think we've all seen a lot of Miro boards, so maybe we don't need to see screenshots, but yeah, this is our global HR team, not a team that maybe be a first user of Miro, getting very excited about doing a design thinking workshop that we would pull them in and get feedback. And then last but not least, once it starts to grow, it gets messy. And maybe for some of you that are seeing now that you have maybe a fairly large team working in Miro, we've definitely seen this is our next challenge. You need to have, you need to treat it seriously once it starts to take off. Assign somebody like a librarian, a knowledge manager, to actively curate the space. Someone that will chase the owners of the various boards within your team, connect them together, building a shared template library. As I said earlier, we have a number of strategic company processes that we start to see, wow, if we created a shared template for that, then that would really help us really use this tool more at scale across the company, and help us drive this any deeper and prevent it again from being just seen as another workshop tool. So that is going to help us a lot. And so we've already actively started doing that for a couple of different areas of the company. So I know I talked really fast, but I figured Q&A was a good thing. So questions, discussions from you all.
Thank you, Nathan. That's very insightful and also very recognizable, also from what we experience here at Ascent, even though we're a much smaller company. Also here, we've had a lot of these learnings also as well. Yeah, I'm also anxious to hear if people have any questions. See something come up in the Zoom chat from Steve Watson. He says, I see you're using, for what I assume is confidential, new product planning. How did you get InfoSec on board? As in, not sure what he means, but Steve, not sure if you can elaborate a bit, or Nathan, if you.
Not sure am I still on mute? I'm not sure the question.
All right, let me unmute Steve's ask.
You can unmute, okay.
Hi, yeah,
Steve?
sorry, I couldn't speak, sorry. Yeah, so working for an asset management company, our InfoSec team are really hot on, obviously, security of the platforms we use. And I've had a lot of trouble with multi-tenant, sort of like, you know, cloud-hosted tools. I just wondered if you'd got many, if you'd had that challenge, because obviously you're using it to discuss, I assume, what are quite confidential things before you go to market, you know.
Are you speaking to sort of the general process of getting a tool like this approved within your IT department?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think each company is different, of course, but I can guarantee you that Philips, of course, is a very conservative company because it's within the healthcare sector. So, yeah, we have very rigorous IT standards to get any kind of tool like this approved, and we had to go through all of that. So that goes basically to my very first learning, which was, of course, we were in a pandemic. We are in a pandemic, and knowing that, we very much engaged with our IT group right off the bat, because I understood Miro's model, which was we had a bunch of people using the free version globally, you know, everywhere from the US to China to all over the place. And I knew this was wanted very much by our community. And I said, hey guys, you know, we have to do this the right way because of those very exact concerns. And once I went straight to IT and started having the dialogues, it became a lot easier. I think what often happens in very big companies is you don't do that, then you have thousands and thousands of users, and then you're sort of trying to do the process backwards. And it becomes very difficult because of those security concerns and legal concerns, et cetera. And what you find in big companies, of course, IT wants to help, but once it becomes such a critical issue and you've got a lot of users, it's hard to do the process backwards.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nathan. Also, thanks, Steve, for your question. Anyone else who has questions for Nathan? There's one thing, Nathan, that I was wondering also, because of course the use of Miro, maybe even also the introduction was also boosted by the fact that we had to work remotely suddenly, I guess. What do you expect will happen if or when things hopefully change for the better again and we can work more at the office? Will that change how Miro is being used?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that we reflect on. I would love it if others can comment. I sincerely hope the whole working from home mentality has changed collaboration forever in a very positive way. I think particularly in very big companies, it's, like I said, brought everyone to be more equal. It's been a great thing for working democracy. Because I think people were just not sensitive. I think there was just not empathy in big companies, but I think any size company for the others, the people scattered about in the world that just weren't in the room or were somehow disengaged. And I think now that everybody is equal, it's really created working empathy. So I think because the return to the office will not be fast, we all know that now, whatever country we're in, I just think that empathy will stick. It's at least I'm an optimist. That's what I believe. And that the technology now, like Miro and so many other companies now are competing in the space, that will enable it to stick.
That was another area of questioning I had, if I could ask another.
Sure.
I was having a conversation about, needing to have a great tool like this in the office. And one of the parts of the business case I was thinking we could make is, at the moment, we book out meeting spaces, we get them half an hour in advance to do the room setup. We book them half an hour after to do the tear down of all of the sheets for the post-it notes and whatever. And then we spend like half a day writing it all up. If we used Miro, we don't waste that time and we don't need to really write up. It's immediately available and people can carry on afterwards. Has anyone had to make a business case like that? Or have you had that value? Have you seen that, as we get more to like, I guess, starting to work in a office space as well as sort of virtually?
I'm curious. I mean, I can certainly answer, but if others want to answer the business case question, I love that the call has turned into Miro business case, but I'm happy to answer it. I think that depending on the size of your company, IT tools become definitely about a business case. We certainly made some of those arguments.
Okay.
The main use case, so to take it maybe a bit away from business case and towards use case, we see for us is that now any in-person meeting is also done in Miro. So whereas it used to be on the whiteboard, there may be an element of that for spontaneity. Oh, the good old days of the physical whiteboard. It's still the takeaways and the asset creation and the content is still somehow ending up in Miro or other digitals, so that the lifeblood, the content can keep going on. And I think in the past, there were so many meetings, especially maybe not with designers, not to criticize non-designers, but other types that would just say, oh, somebody capture the Post-its or the whatever, and hopefully take notes. And then that, of course, is the knowledge that gets lost. And I think, again, that's the democratization I feel like is happening all over the world, is that there's some nice digitization of that now that's happening, and hopefully keeping the thread of meetings and content going on. At least we see that, those use cases.
Yeah.
Of course, now there's too much of it. And that was the last point, is now we have to curate that, of course, and manage it and generate insights.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that's something that we also recognize, that suddenly there's so many boards and frames and content, and indeed you need to sort of curate or make some sort of synthesis of what is really important to keep, as you would normally do maybe from a physical workshop, where you sort of take the physical output and then digitize it, but only the really important elements maybe. I see another question from Tess that also relates to this. Tess, maybe if you want to ask it yourself.
Yeah, sure. So Nathan, great presentation, loved it. You mentioned that it's really important to get the right stakeholders in the Miro room and to get them involved. I imagine you would have come across some people that weren't, that mightn't have design backgrounds or mightn't feel as comfortable in a different environment. If you have come across those people, how was their resistance, and what did you do to overcome that resistance?
Sure, great question. I guess it's on two levels. There's sort of the stakeholders that are from a business or technology perspective that just don't want to take on board another tool. And then there's sort of the resistance on a working level, at your project level, that are saying, I don't know how to use this, or I don't want to use a tool, And I think to address the second one first, it's okay, basically. I think you have to be, as a facilitator, comfortable with that. And we've seen in our sessions, you usually have a facilitator that sort of brings those reluctant people along and says, oh, that's fine, just view, because you're always screen sharing, kind of like we did, right? Of course, you're always screen sharing the board, and you sort of bring those along. And sometimes you find after the first hour of them watching, they'll sort of lurk into the board and start trying to click along and be a more active participator. I think one of the fallacies of using one of these virtual tools or facilitator type tools is that it doesn't require any preparation because it's so easy. And we've definitely seen that, having a week running up to the first session, some stair stepping into it, like a game, it's classically called an icebreaker, but that's not enough. Just having a game 10 minutes before the first time user is not enough. So we've definitely started to experiment more with, hey, a week before, go in and accomplish this simple thing on your own. I think there's that sort of stage fright of when you're suddenly dumping 30 people into a board for the first time, and a user that's maybe not comfortable with technology, or for whatever reason, they're like, hey, I'm not able to do this. They just shut down. And we've definitely seen that. So that's on that level. I think there's all kinds of tricks to get those kind of users into the environment. And that's for the workshop. Like I said, I think what we've really seen is highly effective is setting up a Miro board or even a project folder with multiple boards for a working group, and then having various different on-ramps into an experience for a team, and to set the expectations is, hey, this is going to be our way of working for this project team. We're going to have this here. We're going to accomplish various tasks. We're going to onboard you all in and use it for a lot of different reasons. And then there's the first category, and that's really the, okay, yeah, we just don't want another tool. You know, Microsoft Whiteboard is fine, or this other tool is fine. We've been using it for 10 years, and that's just, yeah, it's just back to the business case, use case. References like, hey, you need to meet this person, they've been using Miro and they love it. We did all those kind of things, and it was super helpful.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, indeed, very good tips. And it also relates to what Merle also was typing in the chat. Indeed, to sort of give people a chance to play with Miro in a sort of safe environment, or a demo board or something that you can use, where people can just really try out and get acquainted with what they can do with the tool.
Yeah, what we've been doing internally is to actually, I asked my manager if I could have the space to test it out for 3 months. And I took some other colleagues with me who also organize a lot of these online sessions. And I said, okay, I got the tool, I have it for 3 months, let's find assignments or space that we can actually use it. And slowly our colleagues also said, well, can I actually see what you're doing there? I know it's for external people, but can I just, hook on, I won't say anything, I just want to look. And actually slowly we integrated it, and now I have an extension for the end of the year, and hopefully until, I get an extension for 2021 as well. So, and then indeed I have to talk with my internal ICT colleagues to integrate it more firmly. Yeah.
Yeah, but then indeed it does help if you have like some best practices and some examples of what it can do and what the impact.
Yeah, but the nice thing about the tool is that actually it provides you with things that you didn't have before. So suddenly there's a question and we need to do something creative online, and there are not really a lot of tools who can provide such a nice and playful area and atmosphere. And this is what Miro does well perfectly. So it's a good tool. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And actually, that also gives us a connection to the second part of this session. Unless if someone still has a question, feel free to raise your hand or to type it in the chat. If not, I actually intend to continue to the second part, where we actually do want to also, like we just said, practice what you preach and just learn by doing. So let's also go back to the Miro boards, all of us, and Pierre and Kim will guide us through a next exercise where we can also play around with Miro. So also both for the novices, but also for the experts, but also see if we can learn from each other, share some best practices and some insights and inspiration. First of all, I want to thank already Nathan for his nice presentation, very good insights, very nice to see what's happening at Philips with Miro, and also in a broader sense in terms of collaborating with people across the globe. I have a thank you gift that we will send your way, a book Outside In. I'm not sure, maybe if you already have it, then we can also have something else. Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Very nice book about the power of putting customers at the center. So not only putting the designers at the center, but then the next step, putting the customers at the center, I guess. So next part, we have about 20 minutes left. So let's see what we can still do in that time. Chiara, I'll hand it over to you, and what we want to do for this part is to go into 2 breakout rooms to sort of have a bit better discussion amongst each other, have a bit smaller groups where we can also interact with each other. I'll try to set up these 2 rooms, and then Pierre, maybe you can introduce the exercise.
Yes, thank you, Sander, and thank you, Nathan. Very interesting conversation. So for the second half of this event, we want to share learning among each other in the community. So we're going to continue in the topic of using Miro to collaborate in a team remotely over time. So I really like the concept of this asynchronous Zen place where we can work together or also work over time on different, in different times. So we want to go in 2 breakout rooms and we're going to discuss together and share learnings and tips and tricks on how to work collaboratively in a team.
Right, so it's already almost 1, so we're going to wrap up the session. I think it's been a very nice session, very good insights, learnings, and hopefully you've also been able to share some learnings with each other in these breakout sessions. We'll keep the board open, so I think we can consider this board also to be like a synchronous, continuous participation tool. Let's keep working on it. Let's keep sharing insights with each other in the Miro board or also through other means. Feel free to reach out if you have questions or also ideas for next events. We plan to do events like this every quarter, every few months. I hope you've enjoyed this, but I also want to invite you to use the board also for leaving feedback. So if you think this was really nice, really cool, let us know, but also if you think we can improve something or if things were unclear. There's a spot in our Miro house at the top, the lounge, which is temporarily closed for drinks at the moment, but it's open for leaving feedback, so you can use this. We really invite you to do so because yeah, it really helps us to improve also these sessions. We also have some other spots in the house. Feel free to have a look. So we also invite you to leave ideas or suggestions for good books or podcasts that relate to the topic of collaboration. Yeah, of course, we invite you to join our Miro user group to be notified also of future events. Thanks a lot, everyone, again. If no one has any last remarks, then I think we can close the session. Thanks again, Nathan. Really inspiring, and thanks again, all of you, for attending. And we hope to see you next time.